This is just amazing. I got this email about 11 minutes ago, and it says, recording, your class and feedback are now available. You can copy the recording information and share it with others. Zoom must be using ChatGPT. They know exactly what I'm going to say, and they've already recorded my lecture. So you can just click on the link and watch it later if you like. I am very happy. Well done. Everybody submitted all the cases. Everybody submitted all the tests. We didn't hit 100% submission with the discussion board, but this was really good. I didn't have to deal with any things. You did very well in the case. The average was 97%. I'm happy to say if you do well, you can keep doing well. I won't turn up the volume or make it harder or double the workload. You keep doing work like this, we'll do well and we'll all be happy. For the tests, the one average was around 91%, the other one is around 88%, and if you average the two averages, we were just below 90%, which is fine, but I'm going to give you some clues before we finish here today, and you can push that average higher. I think you'd like to do that. You did well. Here's just a little note. This is what I would like to see. This is, in fact, sort of something that would work very well for this week's case. This would be something perfect. A heading and just the answers, everything nice and brief. I'm a happy camper. When it comes to feedback, I normally write a little note to you. And I write it somewhere over here, feedback to learner, then I enter the grade and I click submit. This is somebody that has already submitted case number 2. And so if you want individual feedback and you want to see what I thought or why some points were deducted, I don't know how you see my feedback. I can only believe in eCampus, it must be easy. There was something on the discussion board about Tableau. Are we going to use Tableau? And the answer is no, not beyond what we've done now. However, if you go and copy this down, you can just take a screenshot or you can watch it later. It looks as if you can get Tableau for free, as it says right in the middle there. So I'd be happy to know if you can get Tableau for free, just look at the link there and then go to our discussion board and post, I got Tableau for free, it worked just fine. You can see it there, you can take a screenshot or just make a note of the bottom there.
I've gone through that site several times for other courses in my undergraduate, it works.
Oh,
yeah. I just wanted to interject. As of right now, because I downloaded it for 581, the course with the pitch to prosecutor, you only can have a 1-year licensing and it's only for one computer. I tried to do a workaround. I tried to harass their customer service folks to extend it, but they're kind of hard set on that. I don't know why.
Okay.
I was able to register for twice, once with my undergraduate email, once with my graduate, but per educational email that you have, you get 1 year.
Yeah, and I went to WVU for undergrad and grad, so I'm kind of in a bind with that, but we'll see. I'll keep pushing on them.
Okay, and just update anything on the discussion board, please, if you get news. And please, I'm happy to listen to you. This is week number 2, so we're starting a little slower. You can see you have 2 tests and a case. If I go back here, that's the model answer for the case. So I think the workload is very doable. Case 2, this reading, you know, you can just scan it, but we will start with idea in a week from now. There we go. I have module 2. It is posted on eCampus, and it has the link to what exactly this class now. And apparently Zoom has already posted the recording. Good job. We have the guidance video. You can look over there. And then we have 2 chapter reviews. And I'm sorry, I'm going to redo these videos sometime because they have plosives, not expletives, plosives. And plosives are where you pronounce something like, and it gives that kind of sound in the video. I just need to redo it and get rid of that. Chapter 2, quite easy. Chapter 3 is all about Benford's Law, and idea will be coming up next week. So I'm just going to give you an enjoyable Benford's Law lecture. You can sit back and enjoy. And then when we're finished, just as kind of like the icing on the cake, we have 2 questions from the tests, and we'll go over 2 of the answers so that the tests will be more of a pleasure to do than what they would without the clues. Again, read something like Blue's Clues. Now, this is Benford's Law, and Benford's Law is our chapter 3. I'm going to review Benford's Law. I have quite a lot of slides, but they go quite quickly, and some of them are hilariously funny. So I think you'll enjoy our afternoon class. We're going to talk about a bit of theory, and then we'll talk about just various applications to good data and to bad data. Benford was a physicist at the GE Research Laboratories in Schenectady, New York. I used to have all sorts of Benford things up on the wall, but in our new building, we're not allowed to put things up on the wall. So my walls are Benford-less. Benford noticed that the first few pages of his log table books were more worn. The first few pages give us the logs of numbers with low first digits. He then guessed that maybe in this world there are more numbers that start with low digits than what start with high digits. You don't have to read this table. This is from his book. What he did, he took 20 lists of numbers with 20,229 records, and he counted how many of the numbers, or what percentage of the numbers, started with 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. I know it's a little bit blurry, but this is a scan from something from 1938. He found that 30.6% of the numbers started with a 1, 18.5% started with a 2, and if we add these 2 percentages together, we get 49.1% of the numbers starting with a 1 or a 2. Meaning that the other 51% of the numbers started with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. He then made some assumptions, and he assumed that if we take our data and we rank the numbers from smallest to largest, and we call the smallest number number 1, and the largest number perhaps number 1,000, and we do the size of the number on this axis here, the y-axis, that we're going to get this thing called the geometric sequence, which I'm sure you remember clearly from high school. Just teasing. He then did a bit of integral calculus. Brooke, that was one of your favorite classes, the integral calculus class?
I don't know that I'd call it favorite.
I'm just teasing you. You said that was one of the most difficult.
Yes.
He then did integral calculus and came up with what we've grown to love and adore and call Benford's Law. And under Benford's Law, I expect 30.1% of the numbers to start with the digit 1, 17.6% to start with the 2, and only 4.5% of the numbers to start with the digit 9. In the second position, so the year is 2023, and the second digit is that 0. In the second position, the 0 expected to occur about 12% of the time, and the 9 expected to occur about 8.5% of the time. I was a student at the University of Cincinnati, and I was doing a class called this. I can't even remember what the title is. And roundabout page 86, somewhere around there, the author said that if your prior expectation is that the digits are all equally likely, he said this is an improper prior, it's not correct. He said the digits have a predictable pattern, and he just talked about this formula over here, and he didn't even call it Benford's law. I thought this was absolutely amazing. I thought if indeed there were predictable patterns to the digits and list of numbers, then maybe auditors can use these predictable patterns to determine whether a set of data is authentic or whether it is fraudulent. Why would Benford's law work, and why would we have this tendency towards the low digits? Well, if we think of the Dow Jones at 1,000 points, at 1,000 points, it has a first digit 1, and it keeps the first digit 1 all the way up until 2,000, and then we get a new first digit called 2. But we need a 100% increase to go from 1,000 to 2,000. At 5,000, we have a first digit 5, and we keep that first digit 5 all the way from 5,000 right up until 6,000. And at 6,000, we get a new first digit. But we only need a 20% increase to go from 5,000 to 6,000. At 9,000, we only need an 11% increase to go from 9,000 to 10,000, at which stage we get a new first digit again, 1. And at 10,000, again, we need to double 10,000 to 20,000. So we always need to double 1,000 to 2,000, 10,000 to 20,000 to get through the ones, which is why we'll have a 1 as the first digit for far longer. Let's have a look at the real Dow. The real Dow, 1,000 in 1972, 1,000 in 1972, 2,000 in 1987, let's call it 15 years, as well as over here, 10,000 in 1999, 20,000 in 2017. In fact, 17 years to get through there. And we're now stuck at around 33,000, and we've been there for quite a while. But you can come back and ask again. This is just an intuitive explanation. I'm hoping my intuitive explanation isn't too complicated or not clear. You have the heading over there. My numbers need to describe the size of some phenomenon, and not all numbers describe size. A minimum of 0 is okay, but it's, for example, a maximum of 700,000 would not work. If every county had to subdivide when it got to 700,000, Benford's law would fall apart. So we don't want the numbers to be constrained, although we can take it to be constrained at the bottom by 0. We love to use numbers as labels, highway numbers, bank account numbers, social security numbers. I have a room number over here. That would not work. And what we want is we want the phenomenon that we're interested in to have either a geometric growth, like this graph that I had just a little while ago, either to look something like that, or this isn't too terribly important. We're just talking about a little bit of theory here, or it has to come from what we call a mixture of distributions, a whole lot of numbers simply mixed together. Let's have a look at some town and city populations. We have towns and cities. Not everybody in America lives in a town or a city. Some people live in what we might call the county. So we have 19,500 towns and cities, and just over 200 million people living in towns and cities. Here is an example. New Jersey, we'll ignore the total, but we have towns and cities over here. And each town and city has got a population number, and each of these population numbers has got a first digit. And if we go back here, what we would love is for the numbers to be beautiful like this, but what we can also do is we can have numbers that are approximately geometric. Each town and city is increasing, but untidily. And some towns and cities, I have a number from the beginning of the series, some near the end, some near the middle. I have numbers from all over. And if I analyze these numbers, I get beautifully Benford's law. If we look at the digits here, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9, this is Benford's law, 30.1, 17.6, 12.5, all the way down to 4.5%. The bars are the actual proportions. And so for the 9, we can see the height of the bar, the actual matches the expected nearly perfectly. So it doesn't have to be a perfect geometric distribution. Doesn't have to be perfectly geometric. As long as it's approximately geometric, each one, we're okay. These are the first 2 digits. So the year is 2023. The first 2 digits are 20. And for the first 2 digits, our expected proportions go from 4.1% down to just under 0.5%. So the first 2 digits go from 10 all the way up to 99. And the expected proportions, the line, goes from 4.1% down to 0.5%. So this is quite amazing. The 10 is about 8 times as likely. That height is 8 times as the 99. So the 10 expected as a first 2-digit combination, about 8 times as often as the 99. So when you have dinner tonight, you can tell people these exciting statistical findings, and everybody will say, "Oh, wise one, oh, wise one." Great class. The last 2 digits. Because the last 2 digits are kind of deep into the number, and just remember, when we look at this number here, when we get to the 3rd digit and the 4th digit, the digits become pretty much equally likely. So as an approximation, when I'm looking at the ending digits, and the ending digits can go from 00 to 99. If we think of dollars and cents, and we think of the cents as the last 2 digits, the cent amount can be all the way 00 up to 99. So the cents are the last 2 digits are expected to be evenly distributed, and evenly distributed about 1% each. This is what I expect. And I've looked at election data, even some of our contended elections, and looking at the last 2 digits might be a way to pick up whether some of the numbers had been fiddled with. This is the New York Stock Exchange. This is the graph from way, way back. We have 3,000 companies on the New York Stock Exchange. Each company has got a volume for the day. But what I looked at, I did the analysis in 1996. I looked at the volume for the year. And the volume for the year followed Benford's law nearly perfectly. I keep these old graphs because I like them. This is another example. This is a city in the Carolinas. They have an accounts payable system. They have invoices that they pay. And these are the dollar amounts of the invoices. So they have 250,000 invoices to pay for the year. Each invoice has got a dollar amount. Each of those dollar amounts has got digits. And lo and behold, the first digits, the digit 1, 2, 3, almost beautifully conforming to Benford's law. For the first 2 digits, we're not as lucky, and you can see we have an excess here at 25, 30, 50, 80, 75, and that's because some expenses just are round numbers. We generally like the 50 much more than what Benford's law would dictate. I don't think I have a $5 bill in my wallet, but if I do, that has got a first 2 digits 50. We have a 5-cent coin. We like the number 5 and 50. I did this analysis way back in 1997. It was 1996 data. I told the company, I asked them if I can use their graph. They said, yes, as long as you blotch out our name. I said, that's good. I'll blotch out your name. Nobody will know whose graph it is. And indeed, I did blotch out the name nearly perfectly, Benford's law. And the only reason I bring this very old graph up is because there were 2 million records. And the only way to analyze 2 million records in 1997 were using a mainframe computer and SAS. Nowadays, we can do 2 million records, no problem in IDEA, 2 million records, no problem in Microsoft Access, 1 million, no problem in Excel. Mathematical Geology, a wonderful journal, very exciting, mathematics and geology in the same journal. And here you can see Benford's law applied to hydrology data, myself and Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller from Williams College. So Brooke, this is my article, Negrini and Miller, and this is what Brooke posted on the discussion board. I was lucky enough to play at Williams College. So Brooke, in fact, knows Stephen Miller. Do you want to say anything, Brooke?
I texted my best friend who was a math major, and she reminded me that Stephen Miller was actually her colloquium advisor. So we know him very well.
That is very, very interesting. And so if I can go to the other PowerPoint, what I'll show you before we go, here we go. This is the series Connected. It's a Netflix series, and I think it's episode 4 is Digits, and it's all about Benford's law. So you can go onto YouTube and watch the trailer if you like. The trailer, as you can see, just under 2 minutes, and I'm featured in the trailer. But if you go to the actual episode, you will see Stephen Miller in class teaching a lecture, and you will see me in the audience listening to him. So, Brooke, a small world. We're both on Netflix, same series. Back here, we looked at stream flow data, about 140 years worth of data, 450,000 records, and stream flow is terribly important in the United States. We spent a lot of money recording stream flow, or amongst other things, we need to know how strong to build the bridges. The bars are the actual proportions, and the line is the expected proportion, and you will struggle to find a difference between the bar and the line. It's absolutely nearly perfect. So next time you drive over a bridge and you look at the river, you can tell yourself, Benford is there. Benford is with you. Benford is there. Benford is with you every day, even where you don't expect it. Back to accounting data, I did this analysis way back, probably 2005, and the database was called Capital IQ. And I simply took around 25 types of numbers that companies report. I took as much of a mix and match as I could. I put it all in a bucket, maybe 125,000 numbers. I stirred, I did the analysis and outcomes. Benford, beautifully Benford. I then looked at the next year, beautifully Benford again. I looked at the first 2 digits of the data, beautifully Benford. So Benford's law works very well for accounting data in general. Accounting data follows Benford's law. This is in your book, and this is a company, I think they had around 80,000 ledger accounts. We looked at the balances in the ledger accounts, beautifully Benford. So I think in one of your cases, it says, do you expect the data to follow Benford's law? And the short answer is yes. counting data generally does follow Benford's law. This is another analysis that I did on more recent data, CompuStat data. Again, you can see the headings here. This is from the statement of cash flows. These are the graphs, beautifully Benford. Accounting data follows Benford's law very nicely. We're back. A little bit of fraud data. So the treasurer for the state of Arizona invented a fictitious vendor and wrote 23 checks to that vendor called Advanced Consulting for a total of $1.8 million. This was way back, I forget the year. But you know, in the beginning, this was all very hard. I didn't have data. It was hard to get data. There was no internet and no Department of Labor or Census Department with all sorts of statistics. I just had to find my data in court records. Anyway, his name was Wayne James Nelson, the treasurer for the state of Arizona. These are the dollar amounts of his fraudulent checks. And I ask you, what patterns do you notice?
A lot of them to start
It's
with.
a lot of 8s and 9s for the first digits.
Lots of first digit 8s and 9s. And under Benford's law, I should expect lots of first digit 1s and 2s. I know you could say he was the anti-Benford. But of course, this was good that he never knew anything about Benford's law. Anything else?
I want to say that I'm seeing a lot of, at least towards like the hundreds place, it's either they're closer to, you know, like 800 or they're closer to the upper limit. So say like 900 and about to round.
It's a fair comment, but just look at the size of the numbers. Just make some observations about
There's a lot of transactions on one day. That's a lot
Yes.
for one day.
So actually, that is a lot for paying a single vendor, and these were the only checks to that vendor. So it's really odd that you would pay so many payments to the same vendor on the same date. Quite right.
A lot of them end in 7, which would be odd.
Actually, he does end, and he does make mistakes in the end. He's trying to make them look random, but I can see he duplicates 67 over there. He duplicates 16 over there. I'm thinking he duplicates more than that, but I don't want to waste too much time on it. He has more duplications here, and he has duplications here. But the answer I was looking for was he started small and then grew bigger very quickly. And this is what we see. They test the system. He was a very fast learner, but tested the system. And also he kept all these numbers below $100,000. And it could be that at 100, extra internal controls kicked in. It's just one of my early cases. I love it. My students all had Benford's Law projects to do. The student said that she was the bookkeeper at a fast food restaurant, and she said the owner would make up the daily sales numbers out of her head on a Sunday afternoon, and she would journalize the transactions. I thought, this isn't such a great start to your accounting career, journalizing fake daily sales numbers. But let's see, she had the data for a year and 360 days. Anything wrong with that graph, or does it look pretty good to you?
It's negatively skewed.
It looks terrible. However, because it's daily sales and because it's first digits, it is possible that the numbers are in too narrow a range to have that spread that makes Benford's Law work very well. So I looked at the second digits, and this wasn't too bad for somebody making up numbers. However, she also made up the ending digits, the cents. And what we can see here is a huge tendency towards duplicating 40 as the ending digits and no numbers ending in 00. So of all these clues, first digits, second digits, last two digits, this would be my biggest clue that the numbers were invented. Just this gravitation towards the 40 and not using the 00. This was William Byer, head of security for Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority. He would have fake timesheets for security officers that didn't actually work for the 2-week period. He would submit a false timesheet. He would cash the checks and then keep the money. And for the first 5 years of his fraud, and again, I had to get this from the Hamilton County Courthouse. All this data was hard to come by. For the first 5 years of the fraud, wasn't too bad. Not a big sample. And by the way, this graph was done in Quattro Pro. So if any of you know what Quattro Pro is, there was nothing wrong with Quattro Pro. It's just Microsoft came along and not quite goodbye Quattro Pro, but almost goodbye. The first 5 years, the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, he gets lazy and he just uses the same dollar amounts over and over again in his fraud scheme. I just show this to you as amusing and entertaining on a Sunday afternoon. This was a real case. I did the analysis. A company knew that electricity was being stolen. They didn't know who was stealing it. And at first I looked at the amounts billed. And this was the problem. Because it's being stolen, it's not billed. And Benford's law really struggles to pick up something that isn't there. But then I saw that they had journal credits. And it's rather odd to credit somebody's account. The only time you should credit somebody's account is if they pay. But these are journal credits that are just kind of giving the customer a discount. And I noticed right on the right side here that we had twice as many numbers beginning with 99 as what we would expect. And numbers that begin with 99 are numbers that are coming in just below some threshold. Numbers that you would like to have look or seem a little lower than what they actually are. I'm just going to make up a number now. You have a favorite cousin or nephew and you give them a birthday present. You are not going to give them $99 because $99 sounds a lot less than 100. You'll just add the extra dollar, top it up, and $100 sounds so much nicer. So these are numbers coming in below what they believe to be a threshold. I then extracted all the numbers beginning with 99 and I ranked them from largest to smallest. And a kilowatt hour is worth about 10 cents. So this journal credit here for that amount of kilowatt hours is worth about $100,000. And what we found was that people internally were giving customers credits, big credits for kilowatt hours like this. The customer now owes less. The customer pays the lower electric bill and gives the internal person a kickback, a kind of a thank you. And that was a nice one. This was a fraud that Benford's Law and I picked up. Let's move on to Enron. And the amazing thing is, a while back I said I'm never doing Enron again because Enron was so long ago. And then I've had people say, man, do Enron, come on. I'm not saying I'm like the Rolling Stones who don't want to play one of their old songs, but people have said, do Enron, and so here it is. Enron. Enron, the first digit of the street number, very good and very Benford at 1. After that, things deteriorated rather rapidly. The chief financial officer, Andy, and his wife. happy, young, good looking. The accountant, Pawsey, good looking. The auditor, David Duncan, good looking. Is almost like the Weather Channel. Only good looking people can tell you it's going to be hot tomorrow afternoon. The Chief Executive Officer, and this was months before everything imploded. And Skilling, not so happy, but Skilling has been released. There we go. So these were the fraudulent financial statements of Enron. We're not going to go through all of these numbers. I will summarize the numbers for you, but they restated 97, 98, 99, and they restated the year 2000, saying it was all a mess and all wrong. So these are the headline numbers: total revenue, net income, earnings per share. I remind you that the digit 0 is expected as the second digit only 12% of the time. Let's have a look at their revenue numbers. 20 billion, 0.2, second digit 0. 31 billion, 0.2, well, that's a 1. 40 billion, 0.1, they just make 40. 100 billion, 0.7, they just make 100. Net income, 105, 703, 1024. When the second digit is a 0, it means you've just made a target. You've made the number look higher. And here we have another one, earnings per share, $1.01, second digit 0. So they have 12 headline numbers, 4, 4, and 4. Of those 12 numbers, we have 7 second digit zeros. Enron loves to do this. They love these numbers to just make thresholds that were important to them. But they imploded in 2001. And if we look at their quarterly results for the first quarter of 2001, we can see the numbers down at the bottom there. And you tell me what you notice about those numbers.
Zero is the second digit in both of them.
Good call. 0 is the second digit in both of them. Plus, watch this. 40 billion, 100 billion. That is a staggering increase in revenue, 40 to 100. Then we go for the first quarter and we get 50 billion. Now, if there's no more growth, what is your revenue for a year if your revenue is 50 billion for the quarter?
$200 billion.
100.
200. And if we go back, 200 billion would have put them on par with Walmart, which had the highest revenue of any company in the world. They would have matched Walmart's revenues at 200 billion. And they would have been one of two companies in that stratosphere. 50 billion, 406 million. Second quarter, net income, 404 million. Revenue, 50.06 billion. Second quarter. So revenue 50.06, net income 404. And what do you notice about those two numbers?
Second digit says 0.
Again, second digit 0, and not only second digit 0, watch how close they are to each other. You see here 404 and you see 50.06. And we go back and we get 406 and 50.1. It's uncanny how close they are. And in language that we all understand in the year 2023, it is almost as if this is a screenshot of that. So close. And that's all. This is Andy Fasto. This is myself and Fasto a while later. That was in Houston, around about 2016 as well. I was hoping that we could do some joint research and joint publishing, and it didn't work out as I would have liked. Enron done, we're back to. This is AIG. As I think it stands for American International Group, but it almost stood for and it's gone. This is the year 2008. This is the net loss in millions, 99,289 million. It's a staggering loss. And I thought they probably wanted to keep this loss below 100 billion. Can any company recover from a $99 billion loss? Well, I'll just answer it by myself. Not by themselves. It needs government bailout. Here we go. We're going back to maybe 1995 now. And this is Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton's tax returns. And to cut a long story short, this was maybe the third time that people have gone through the Clinton tax returns and they have found errors, and then the Clintons write a check and pay the IRS. And it's the statute of limitations is kicked in a long time ago, but they just write the check. So I thought this is very interesting. Clinton's tax returns of numbers have digits. I said, let me analyze these digits. And so I get the tax returns because, as you know, when somebody runs for president of the United States, they release their tax returns to the public. Happens all the time. Maybe not all the time. I got the tax returns, and it was 600 pages of tax returns. And together with a tax professor, we looked at the manipulatable numbers. Numbers that you cannot manipulate are totals, subtotals, numbers that you have to find from tables. Certain numbers cannot be manipulated, numbers that you have to look up, and the like. And we coded the income and the deduction items in different colors. And here's another one here, income and deduction items, different colors. And then we analyzed it. And here we go, income items. About 400 income items, a reasonably good fit to Benford's law for a small data set. Deduction items, about 600 of them, a reasonably nice fit to Benford's law for a small data set. I submitted this to a tax journal and they rejected the article. And they rejected it because we have a theory, and the theory says numbers should behave this way. And we analyze the numbers and they behave this way. It's a non-event when it comes to academic research. But I don't give up that easily. It was round about 1996. I was living in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and they had the G7 summit in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Okay, we're back from the Clintons. And now we'll just do, we're getting near the end here, maybe 15 more. I love publishing on Benford's Law. You can read the title there and you can read the journal. And I talked about using Benford's Law to test journal entries. And I draw on this thing from the Health South fraud. So Weston Smith, you can see the author here. Weston Smith was the chief financial officer at Health South. And he was one of the people that started the Health South fraud the Health South financial statement fraud was massive, absolutely massive. And he writes about how we did it. So this is Weston and me. This is Minneapolis. They're all very nice people. This is one of the trademarks. You have to be a very nice, likable person to pull off a really big stunt. Anyway, in his journal article, he says they kept the journal entries below 5,000 to avoid detection by the auditors. So they knew that the testing threshold was $5,000. And at the bottom here, he says, at the end of this exercise, over 126,000 fraudulent journal entries were posted quarterly. If we multiply this 126 by 4, because it's quarterly, we get around 500,000 fraudulent journal entries per year, all of them below 5,000. And I thought, well, probably won't go too low. Maybe he kept the journal entries from $2,000 to $5,000. There were a lot of them. So my analysis, I took a data set of journal entries. You can see it's a little bit messy, but this is real journal entry data. And then I added a chunk of journal entries from $2,000 to $5,000. And you can see what we have forming here in this 20 to 50 range is what I call a ridge. And what we have there is a valley. Then I added more. Then I added more. And so the bottom line here is Benford's law will work very well to detect fraudulent journal entries if somebody uses exactly the scheme where they keep the journal entries below the testing threshold. This is how good the Health South fraud was. This is the indictment. They talk about the assets being overstated by $2.7 billion. They overstated the cash by 370 million. This was the balance sheet. Cash, 389 million. So I ask you, if they overstated the cash by 370 million and they report 389 million, how much cash did they actually have?
About 20,000.
About 20 million. Yeah. They have about 20 million and they report 389 million. It's a brilliant fraud and quite well done. These are the conclusions. Benford's law works well when the second situation there is something like tax returns, where everybody has the same incentive to overstate or to understate something. And since we all have the same incentive, Benford's law can generally pick up these patterns. It's a first step. It's not the only thing that we're going to do. And in our class, we're going to do Benford's law, but we will do other tests as well. And that's that. We'll skip those two there. Any quick questions? I'll take a few quick questions. If you don't want to ask now, you can ask when we officially sign off. I'm happy. I see lots of cameras on. You can ask when I'll sign off and then stop the recording and then we can go on. Let's go back here. You can see that. Okay, here's a little bonus for you. This is test 2A. 2 questions from 2A. I don't know if yours is number 9, but anyway, this is just a question. Give me suggestions for the answer for the top one.
Concatenate year month.
Good call. Good call there. It's concatenate year and month. So the way that we're going to get this 2009-1 is we will use concatenate, which means join together. So not that, this is terrible, this isn't a function. Concatenate, which means join together. We'll get the year out of this date. We'll put in the dash, and then we'll use months to haul the months out of this date. So the answer is concatenate year month. I just remind you that in your tests, that is not necessarily going to be number B. It randomizes it. So it's wherever you see concatenate year month. Excel have updated this function and they have a new version of it. I forget offhand what it's called. I can come back to you on that. But for 2A, it's concatenate year month. The next question. So the periodic graph has got the date on the x-axis and the amount on the y-axis, and we are getting the total per month, usually per month.
It's date on the column and then the amount on the row.
Perfect. I love it. It is date on the column and amount on the row. And that way you will get date on the x-axis and amount on the y-axis. Good call. You had 2 out of 10 so far. 2B. The first question, the top one.
So I took the test today and I'm pretty sure I got this question wrong. I don't know what I got wrong. We can't see, but I didn't fully understand this question.
I know. And I'm sorry. I did see that you did the test today. And I did see it. I did see
Which
it.
one did you pick though?
I picked A. And I think it's wrong. Because I wasn't sure, and that's the one I wasn't confident about. And I'm wondering if I was going to take it again, I would choose B.
So here it is. Oh, and I'm just nervous about saying B because remember it's going to randomize it.
Right.
So the answer you would have picked was the 2.718, and that is correct.
See, I should have went with my gut.
It happens to me all the time when I trade on the stock market. So the 0.30103 is the proportion expected for the first digit 1. The 3.141 is, you tell me.
That's pi.
That's pi. The D, the last one, I don't want to use D, I'm just nervous, is the it's called an imaginary number. The square root of -1. So the mathematicians, sometimes they denote it by I. Now, just remember, I have no problem with you looking up E on Google. And while you're doing the test, and if you'd done that, you would have got the 2.718. This one, I'm going to go back to my graphs here quickly. So what this is saying is, here we go. In the first 2-digit graphs, the first 2 digits go from 10 to 99. It says how many bars are on the graph.
100.
The number of first 2-digit combinations, the number of bars on the graph equals
100.
Now you can count. Now, in order for it to go to 100, it would, in this case.
Oh, it's 99. Oh,
okay.
89.
These are the last. Yeah, these are the last 2 digits, and remember we said it's like the cents, and the cents can go from 00 to 99. So there are 100 cents to the dollar. 00 to 99. But when I go from 10 to 99.
89.
Close.
90?
That's it. When you subtract the one number from the other, it doesn't give you the number of bars. You have to add one afterwards. It's actually 90.
Mm,
It's 90. And for this one, the other way that you can get it is you have this here. And you have the tables here. And this is the first 2-digit graph. It goes from 10 to 99. The x-axis goes from 10 to 99. There it is. First 2 digits, 10 to 99. And what you could do is you could simply count how many there are here, and you would get it by going equals, you don't want to count it manually. You can count it.
It also gives you the number at the bottom. Once you have it highlighted, it has count 90.
That's very clever. Yes, it is down at the bottom. Of course, I can't see it.
Oh, it disappeared. It was there last time.
It was there, yes.
Yeah, it was there.
Okay, so I'm just doing the count and it'll count 90. However, you're quite right. We go here. If we highlight it, there it is.
There it is, yeah.
Count 90. So that should help you out with that one. There we go.